Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, continuing to take a look at the next week's slate and heading down to the Big 12 championship game, Oklahoma State, Texas Longhorns. Dell, this Oklahoma State team, you keep leaving them for dead. Earlier in the season, they lose to South Alabama. If you would have told me Oklahoma State is now playing for a Big 12 championship game, I would call you crazy. Against BYU, it looked like they weren't going to be in the Big 12 championship game. They figure out how to win. And then you look at the Texas Longhorns, a team that we've been critical to an extent in the sense that this Texas team can be extremely special. I think it's one of the most talented rosters in the entire country, and they never really seem to reach that potential and have that highest gear. Friday night in Austin, they found that highest gear. This Texas Longhorns team is a team that I don't think a lot of teams want to see in the college football playoffs, because they're one of the most dangerous teams in the country. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, just want to say thank you to you guys. The amount of support y'all have shown for these game breakdowns, it truly has been amazing. Cannot thank you guys enough. If you do enjoy the content, you do want to support the fellas, consider subscribing to the channel, and more importantly, let us know in the comment section how you guys are thinking. Picks, predictions, keys to the game. Dill, I'm going to give you the T-box here. Oklahoma State, Texas. How we feeling?
Yeah, I mean, obviously stunning to see Oklahoma State here. I think if you asked me after week 3 or something, I would have been like, I think there's a better chance Mike Gundy gets fired before the season even ends than they're going to play in the Big 12 championship. But here they are. It feels like Oklahoma State does this constantly. But, like, obviously Texas is the team to beat in this matchup. I mean, Texas, so much more talented, have been so much more steady all season. And really, it would take a Herculean effort, it feels like, for Oklahoma State to beat them.
Yeah, I think, and we said this time and time again, like this Texas team from a talent standpoint, from a bone standpoint, from a potential standpoint, is one of the best teams in the country. You've seen them put it together on the road at Alabama, and then you just have seen it in sporadic moments. And it was nice to see them against Texas Tech kind of have that complete game where they kind of just show we're different. We got different players. We got different caliber athletes. Thought that was on full display in Austin on Friday night. Let's start with this Texas offense going up against an Oklahoma State defense that is not really going to scare you. Giving up 28.6 points per game, that's 77th in the country. You look at this Texas offense, for as critical as we've been of this group, you look down at the numbers. Like 35 points per game, that's 14th in the country. 6.4 yards per play, that's 20th in the country. The numbers are still pretty damn good. And yet we say this Texas offense probably still has another gear that they're trying to get to.
Yeah, and as much as the pass game, I don't want to say it's inconsistent, but it does feel like it shows – it takes like little breaks almost in between games, and where you're like, man, you got to hit these throws. They're open enough, and it's been good. But at the end of the day, Texas always has a trump card. They can rely on putting the ball on the ground and getting yards no matter – it seems like no matter what's going on. I mean, they run the football – an incredible level. Their offensive line's great. It feels like they had 3 really good running backs. Now they're down to 2, obviously, with Brooks getting injured. But this rushing attack, it's as good as anyone in the country.
Yeah, we said it when Jonathan Brooks, which, again, just like ripped your heart out because he was playing like one of the best running backs in the country. We kind of said this running game is going to be just fine. Like Jonathan, that's not a shot at Jonathan Brooks. It's more of a compliment to that Texas offensive line being absolutely dominant. But more importantly, the depth in that running back room is really good. You got 5-star CJ Baxter, I know got banged up, but he gave you some really good work. And then how about Jaden Blue, a guy that we haven't really talked about much, averaging 6.7 yards per carry on the year. And you talk about hitting those explosive plays. A guy like Jaden Blue, with the juice that he has when he gets to the second level, certainly has that. When you have an offensive line that's going to get you clean up to the second level and sets you up with linebackers and safeties in space, not many better running backs that you'd rather have with the ball in their hands than a guy like Jaden Blue.
And I love the way they complement each other in the backfield. I mean, CJ Baxter's a guy you can give it to. He can grind out hard yards. He can be a bit of a bruiser. It's not to say he can't take the ball and make big plays with it. I mean, he obviously can. But when they can spell him for Jaden Blue and give him a quick blow, and Jaden Blue can go, he's that like electric. He can take it to the house whenever he touches it. And that's kind of what Jonathan Brooks was giving them. I mean, those big plays that Brooks had, Jaden Blue's kind of stepped in and filled that gap. And to me, that's been a huge part of why Texas has been so dangerous, because it's really hard to run the ball effectively when you can't hit those big plays. And you've seen like times like you think like Michigan or Iowa, some of those teams that they want to like establish the run game. But if you can't hit that 30+ yard play at a relatively high clip, it's really hard in Texas. That's what they've been doing a really good job with, is they hit those explosive
And
plays.
I'll say, when you have the struggles that Texas has had in the red zone all year and you have the ability to go 50 yards for a touchdown, that's pretty good. Now, the passing attack, again, Quinn Ewers, 70% completion percentage, average depth of attempt, or average yards per attempt, 8.9, both top 15 marks in the country. And this is kind of speaking to the expectations of Quinn Ewers and what we all think this offense can be. I think a lot of Texas fans would agree with this. There's probably some meat left on the bone in terms of this Texas passing attack hitting its stride. You have a guy like Xavier Ward. You have a guy like A.D. Mitchell, who I say for Texas fans, they know it. In the big moments, in the big games, he was that guy for Georgia. This is when he tends to show up. You have a guy like J.T. Sanders and my personal favorite, Jordan Whittington. I'm really looking forward to seeing Texas establish the run against a defense that's only averaging 4.6 yards per carry given up to opposing running backs. That's 91st in the country. You establish the run, and then can you hit those explosive passes after that run? That's going to be something I'm keeping my eyes on for these Texas Longhorns.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Texas. It's like it definitely is nitpicky to criticize or whatever about their passing attack. But like when it's that good and you got a Quinn Ewers who's that talented and the wideouts are that talented, I think it's fair to be that way. And I think it's fair for Texas fans, frankly, to be not impatient, but like, again, kind of just recognize the obvious. Look, this should be one of the best passing attacks we've ever seen. It's got that type of potential. Sarkisian is that type of coach. And it just does it. It probably just needs to be more consistent. Because again, you see they can hit those big plays. They did it against Alabama. They do it in the games they need to when Quinn Ewers is playing. But I think you don't want to see games like TCU where you kind of spend the whole half and you really can't get anything going.
That's the biggest like concern you have, is just playing 4 quarters. And that's been what we've said for Texas pretty much all years. You'll come out, play a dominant first half, look by far like the better team, and then coming out of the locker room or for like a half of the quarter, you look like a team that's completely lost their confidence. You want to see 4 quarters of good football. Something I realized with this Oklahoma State secondary, really, really aggressive. Only giving up a 58% completion percentage. That's 29th in the country. They're jumping routes. They're getting their hands on footballs. But you look at the yards per pass, it's 124th. They're giving up 8.4 yards per pass attempt. So they give up the big play. There's not a better head coach in the country at calling plays and scheming up those big plays than Coach Sark. You wonder if Texas is going to find some of those big plays against an Oklahoma State Cowboys secondary that's been good in terms of being aggressive, but they do give up that big play. They're looking at the other side of the ball. You know what Oklahoma State wants to do. They want to turn around, give that football to Ollie Gordon. They're going to be running into a defense that's arguably the best in the country against the run, though.
And that's what I'd be very concerned with for Oklahoma State is I think their offensive line is good. I think Ollie Gordon makes him look a lot better. I do question, do they have the physicality and just the level of guy to go deal with Texas? Because I don't think they've really seen that type of unit. I mean, Oklahoma is not Texas up front. I mean, guys like Sweat and Murphy and like they're all so good. That's what I'm kind of looking for, because it doesn't feel like a ton of pros up on that Oklahoma State offensive line, and they do need to be able to run the ball, because you can't have Bowman just.
And you're running into a front seven with a bunch of pros on it. And like what's most special about this front seven is you guys, like Tavondre Sweat, Murphy, and Alfred Collins, who are phenomenal against the run, but also can rush the passer. But more importantly, or maybe arguably just as important, I should say, you have linebackers that are keeping clean, because this defensive line is so hard to handle. So you have guys like Jalen Ford, who's arguably the best linebacker in the Big 12, and Anthony Hill Jr. Those kind of guys, when they're able to play clean because that defensive line is so dominant, that's why they've been so good against the run, only giving up 2.9.
If you can bottle up Ollie Gordon, that's kind of the answer to stopping him. Because if he can get in space and get going, he's a bigger guy. It does take him a second to get going. But the way Texas plays and how hard they come downhill and they don't miss a ton of tackles, that feels like it's going to be very tough for Ollie Gordon. Because, again, he is that type of guy. Once you get him in space, he's very hard to bring down. He's very big. He's physical. He's got good agility for that size. But if I feel like if you can kind of bottle them up, you have a way to stop them, because that has been
100%. He's the most dangerous when he gets to that second level and he gets that head of steam and he starts cooking. And one of the things that's my biggest question heading into this game is it's going to be tough sledding for Oklahoma State to consistently run on this front seven of Texas. You look at Alan Bowman's numbers, there's a direct correlation between him playing his best football when Ollie Gordon's getting it going on the run game. They rely on a lot of play action. They rely on staying on schedule and not asking Alan Bowman to get into those third and long situations. If Alan Bowman is forced into some of these third and long situations and that Texas pass rush starts cooking, Alan Bowman, not the most mobile guy, like, can Alan Bowman have this success against this Texas secondary if they cannot get the run game going with Ollie Gordon?
Yeah, and that's definitely true. Like, if he's got to just sit back there and try to cut the pocket, it's really not his game. I do think, though, when he has been able to really complement what they do, I don't think he frankly gets enough credit, Alan Bowman. I think when they're playing well, he plays really well. The problem is he's had some horrible, horrible moments, obviously, and 11 picks on the year, only 10 touchdowns is not good for the amount he's played. But he has, like, when he's going, they can move the ball. They got big physical wideouts. They got a guy like Presley who can hurt you in the middle in getting the ball in his hands in space. But I just think, like, this Texas defense, it's so daunting of a task for a guy who, again, can have those moments where looks really, really bad. Texas seems like they can do that to teams.
Yeah, and the only thing I'm pushing back on is, like, Alan Bowman is a Michigan guy. We're Michigan fans. Like, I like Alan Bowman. I'm a fan of Alan Bowman. I feel like a lot of his success has come off of play action and kind of the run game. And if you can't get the run game going, like, I'm looking at it, and I don't have a ton of confidence that Alan Bowman's going to be able to drop back and piece this Texas secondary apart that was so good against Texas Tech. Texas Tech had less than 3 yards per pass attempt against this Longhorn secondary. Watching back the film this morning, guys like Malik Muhammad, Terrence Brooks, there were no throwing windows. I mean, this Texas secondary, that was the best we've seen them play all year. I'm a fan of the wide receivers. Jaden Bray, Brennan Presley, Rashad Owens, they can play. Can they get open and create separation against the Texas secondary that's coming off their best game? And then more importantly, if Oklahoma State is facing these third and longs, can they block up Texas up front? And I think that's probably the biggest the Longhorns have, is they're just different up front than what they're going to see from Oklahoma State.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it will take a lot. They will need to play so good Oklahoma State. They really don't have a lot of room for error, because you're right. It's just like man to man, Texas is a far more talented unit, and that defensive side of the ball, especially, it tilts talent-wise almost every direction of Texas.
I thought you saw that, like, so much against Texas Tech, where it was just like this Texas defense just kind of just outgunned Texas Tech.
It's not the greatest football team in the world, but it's not a team that you kind of expect to, again, look almost like a group of five.
It was a varsity versus JV game. Like, in terms of the size and the athleticism, that's not trying to take a shot at Texas Tech as much as this Texas defense just looks different. Like, they got a bunch of NFL dudes. All right, getting to the pick. There's a reason Oklahoma State, 12.5-point underdogs here. Then I'm going to ask you, who are you riding with?
Yeah, I think Texas. I don't know. Oklahoma State, I still can't quite figure them out.
Me neither.
Very impressive that they've gotten here, but every time I watch, I'm kind of like, how's this team winning all these games? I just think when you go up against a team like Texas, who's played as consistently and as good as they've played, and obviously when Quinn Ewers is healthy, they've been so dangerous on offense. I just like 12 points or 12.5 is really not that many points for how good Texas is playing.
Yeah, I'm going to ride with the Longhorns too. And it's more what you saw last week against Texas Tech. Like that version of Texas is covering 12.5 against Oklahoma State. That version of Texas is one of the best teams in the entire country. Now, do you get that version of Texas? 4 quarters in a Big 12 championship game? That's the question. But if that Texas Longhorns team shows up, I think they cover that number. And again, Oklahoma State, they've been scrappy. Like this is a team that continues to surprise me. And this could very well be a game if Texas is not on their P's and Q's, but if they are, I mean, give me the Longhorns covering that 12.5. This Texas team, if they hit that top gear, it's one of the most dangerous teams in college football. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys again. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.